A thank you to Hal Hurwitz for Shacharit. We'll have the opportunity to do some more praying with Hal with the concluding prayers of Musaf. This point, we would, if we weren't engaged in social distancing, have the privilege of calling people to the Torah and hearing our Torah reading, as well as the Haftorah, the chanting from the prophets. But in this mode of adjustment, recalibration, we instead do a little introduction to what would have been the Torah and the Haftorah, and then have a Devar Torah, a more developed teaching. So first, the introduction. This morning, in a non-leap year, and this is a non-leap year on the Hebrew calendar, is a combined two parshas, Bahar and Bechukotai, bringing us to the end of the middle book of the 5 books of Moses. We conclude the reading of Vayikra. Vayikra, often known in English as Leviticus, known to the rabbis as Torat HaKohanim, the teachings for the priests, concludes with Moses looking forward, but first being grounded in Mount Sinai as the place in which directives emerge. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Bahar Sinai, and the ever-present one spoke to Moses at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, Lamor, saying, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, v'amarta alehem, and you shall say to them, Ki tavo'u el ha'aretz, when you come into the land, asher ani noten lechem, which I will give to you, v'shafta ha'aretz Shabbat ladonai, and you shall institute in the land a sabbatical for God. And then laws unfold of responsibility to the land itself. A sabbatical in which the land is to lie fallow to regain its strength, with the emphasis that this land is not yours. You, God says, are ger v'toshavim. You are like transient tenants of this land, for the land is mine. A statement of remembering that what you have is a gift and a responsibility. In Parsha Bechukotai, that theme is continued. Im Bechukotai telechu, if by my statutes you shall go, ve'et mitzvotai tishmoro, my expectations you shall observe, vasitem otam, and do them. V'natati gishmechem b'item, I will give your rain in its seasons. V'natna ha'aretz yevula, and I will give of the land its abundant produce. V'eit sasadeh, the tree of the field, yitain piryo, will give its fruit. And then in Bechukotai, more blessings as reward if you follow my ways, and longer list of curses if you go astray, with the ending of Leviticus as the opening of Bahar, acknowledging that these are the words that God gave at Mount Sinai. The key word in our Torah reading is im, if you follow my ways. For the gifts that I give you are contingent on you being loyal and humble and therefore grateful. One of the great teachers of the rabbinate of the previous generation was Rabbi Sidney Greenberg. He was the rabbi in a suburb of Philadelphia for over 40 years. And he was prolific in his writing of his sermons and his writing of books. In this book, Lessons for Living, on this morning's Parsha, he points out that if is a little hinge on which the door of destiny swings. And then he quotes the celebrated artist Whistler, and he writes as follows: if the celebrated artist Whistler had his heart set upon a career in the army, but he flunked out of West Point because he failed in chemistry. In later life, he used to say, if silicon had been a gas, I would have been a major general. Which is to say, there are times in our life where we may make a mistake. In the great painter Whistler's case, not doing well in chemistry. And the challenge of life is, how do we rebound? How do we change? How do we make the best of our situation? One more little bit of an if in Rabbi Greenberg. A history professor built an impressive case in defense of the observation that if Cleopatra's nose had been 1 inch longer, the entire history of the world would have been different. Which is to say, I surmise that her success was due in much part to her good looks, and that too was an if. That was something that you don't control. I mean, you can, but you don't normally have control over much in life. And the if to circle is, when life presents us with choices, do we make the best of those choices? Knowing that there again will be mistakes and the need for resiliency. And last, Sidney Greenberg points out that in English, at the center of the word life is the word if. That our lives are determined by how we respond to choices, to if. And he provides a parallel to say that the word life in Hebrew is chayim. And the two middle letters in the word chayim are yud yud, which often represents for our sages the name of God. In fact, if you take out the yud yud, I add, to the word chayim, what you get is cham, which means hot. Life is hot without putting God at the center. To place God at the center means a perspective of gratitude for all our gifts and an awareness that we are responsible before God, before our higher self, for the choices that we make. Which leads me to the Haftorah, words of the prophet Jeremiah, linked to the blessings and curses of the Torah reading. Thus said the Lord, cursed is the person who trusts only in people, who makes mere flesh his or her strength, and turns his or her thoughts from the divine. That person shall be like a bush in the desert, which does not sense the coming of good. It is set in the scorched places of the wilderness, in a barren land without inhabitant. Blessed is the person who trusts in Adonai, whose trust is in Adonai alone. That person shall be like a tree planted by waters, sending forth its roots by a stream. It does not sense the coming of heat. Its leaves are ever fresh. It has no care in a year of drought. It does not cease to yield fruit. This image of Jeremiah is paralleled by Psalm 1. The image is that the blessing of faith is to feel deeply rooted. And by being deeply rooted, we draw from that which is unseen, the spirit of hope, the spirit of the ability to have a better day tomorrow, the Spirit of God that gives us reason to count our blessings, in contrast to the person who sees life as only a product of limited years, to which there is no accountability for one's goodness or not. That person, so Jeremiah describes, is like a sagebrush, no roots, dries up and is blown by the wind in times of trouble. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, in these times of challenge, our choices are more limited than most, and yet each day and in each moment we make a choice to celebrate life and to make the best of our situation. We may falter, but we have the ability to choose to get up and to do better. May we make good choices. Amen.